Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today, as usual, folks. We're going to talk polls. We're also going to talk about the Unified Reich. Wow, the Unified Reich. Yep, Donald Trump went there. And of course, they want to put something out and then pull it back, then put something out and then pull it back. It's a message to those that they know they want to talk to. They want to know, hey, we're on the same wavelength. We're sending you the message. But don't worry, don't worry. Even if we have to pull it down, you know where our heads are. You know where our heads are. That's what it's all about, folks. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Eso lo que es. Mi gente, eso es lo que es. Anyway, folks, we're going to have a great show for you today. Welcome aboard. Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain. Welcome aboard Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. And of course, Michael Rudnin from Brooklyn, New York. Where are all my peeps? I guess the email is a bit slow, or the bells and whistles are a bit slow. You know, I think we often get throttled. I wonder why. I wonder why we have a tendency to get throttled, you know? But you know what, folks? We are not going to sweat it. E2247 has made it to the house. Welcome aboard, E2247. Glad to see you here. Checking to make sure my mailers went out, and it seems like they have indeed just launched. All right, excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, folks, we're going to have a great show. Michael Rudden has a long one again. But you know what? It looks like an important one. Egberto, pardon some of the quoted language here, but I found an interesting one from last month that I missed, showing how Russian disinformation campaigns have infiltrated the right-wing social media bubble and spread talking points among conservative groups. Washington Post, Russian trolls target U.S. support for Ukraine. Kremlin documents show social media posts and comments were to be created, as well as YouTube videos that should stoke racial and social discord in the United States and amplify the themes of universal poverty, record inflation, a halt to economic growth, the risk of job losses for white Americans, privileges for colored people and degenerate people and invalids. AP News, Russian disinformation is about immigration. The real aim is to undercut Ukraine aid. In social media posts, these Russian disinformation accounts misstate the impact of immigration, highlight stories about crimes committed by immigrants, and warn of dire consequences if the U.S. doesn't crack down at its border with Mexico. Many are misleading, filled with cherry-picked data or debunked rumors. In most cases, the goal of these trolls' account is to sow discontent along racial lines, to fracture an already divided nation so that we're fighting amongst ourselves rather than putting any focus on what they're doing. It explains why so many conservatives are pro-Russia, when just a generation ago such viewpoints would be seen as blasphemy among Republicans. Not only that, if you thought that kind of way, you became persona non grata. Rather quickly, you became persona non grata. It is amazing how things have changed. It is amazing how things have changed. Anyhow, I'll take a look at that video at a later time. Brother Rudin, thank you for, as usual, giving us good material. All right, let's see what else we got here. What else have we got here? E2247 rings us with his statistics again. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called natural human persons Who remember the original instructions? Day 228 since 7 October 2023 equal at least 35,647 Palestinian deaths, 85 persons more than day 227, at least 79,852 wounded, 200 persons more than day 226, equal 115,499 casualties. 115,499 casualties equal 507 per day of estimated 5,385,12, 2% of the West Bank and Gaza Palestinian population, with 35,647 Palestinian kills. That's 156 per day. 38% are kids and women. Were U.S. to be in the situation of Palestine now, 228 days into genocide by Israel, U.S. has proportionally killed and injured total of 7,216,597, approximately 2% of the population of the United States. When you put it in those staunch numbers, it is effectively very, very hard to deny that what Netanyahu is doing in Gaza is effectively not figuratively, but literally genocide. And I'm glad that the international courts have recommended that Netanyahu and his general be arrested for war crimes, as well as 3 leaders of Hamas. Now, I continuously watch the disdain, what is that word that we use? The righteous indignation of President Biden that they're going to put Netanyahu in the same level as Hamas. How dare they? The truth of the matter is, if I were looking at it, I would say Netanyahu is worse than Hamas. Netanyahu and those generals show that they possess an evil greater than that of Hamas. When you can mow down an entire neighborhood with 2,000-pound bombs, knowing that in those areas there are civilians, when you care nothing about them and you make their buildings fall on them, you kill them, their cracked skulls, they're destroyed. How is that not comparable with what's done by Hamas? I don't care that you're saying self-defense. If in America right now, a few thugs were to go in the middle of Washington, D.C., where we have a whole lot of rich businessmen and politicians living, and let's say our thugs hid among all these people, and they also made it difficult for these people to leave, how do you think Americans would react if the police force went and said, well, it's their fault that all those businessmen and rich people died because they hid amongst them and we had to take them out, so we dropped 2,000-pound bombs? But you can only rationalize that. That statement, that excuse can only be rationalized if you look at the humanity of the Palestinians as less than the humanity of anybody else. Because if you have a whole bunch of thugs among a whole bunch of people in America, a whole bunch of people in Israel, and because of that, you would be more surgical as opposed to using destructive 2,000-pound bombs. The only reason you would do it is if you disregard the humanity of others. So don't fall for the anti-Semitic trope that they will attempt to use at you when you put Netanyahu in the same plane with Hamas. That's where he belongs. That's where the leaders of the IDF belong. When you can do that kind of carnage onto a people, That is evil. That is the definition of evil. If somebody kills my loved ones, God forbid, and if I track that persons down to a home full of innocent children to exact revenge, if I went and blew that whole place up to ensure that I'm going to get those thugs, those terrorists that killed my people, how different is that? We wouldn't tolerate that here in the United States. But by the way, let me be clear, let me be frank. When Netanyahu looks back at the United States and say, we're doing nothing different than what you do, to some extent he's right. Because when the United States went into Panama to get Manuel Antonio Noriega, one man, purportedly for financing some of the drug trade that make it to the United States because Americans love their drug and capital and Noriega was a capitalist. I'll make it easy for Americans to get their drug. Yeah, you can use our banks to finance it. You know, Americans want their drugs, we'll supply their drugs. Supply and demand. And in order to get that one man, the United States did the same thing. They came with missiles, bomb, the stealth fighter, the C-131 in Cologne, and blew up some buildings and blew things up. Okay, so Netanyahu was following to some extent our lead, but we expect with a Biden, we expect with a more humane type of government that we would have learned our lessons, that there's something called blowback, and there's something called morality, and there's something called humanity. Don't follow our lead on what we did in Panama, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Do the humane thing. Don't repeat what happened to you in Germany on a higher scale in Gaza proportionally. Don't do that. So for anybody who is moral, everybody who is moral, this is not up for debate. I believe there are two sides to every argument, and to many arguments, not every argument, to many arguments. Also, there are times when the answer is not black and white. The answer in Gaza, the answer in Panama, the answer in Iraq, the answer in Afghanistan was black or white. And the United States and Israel, under the auspices of Benjamin the genocidal Netanyahu, failed. They failed humanity. They failed humanity. And it doesn't matter how much Biden or anybody else want to have some sort of righteous indignation. I don't care. They're wrong. And they're complicit in the deaths of innocent men, women, and children. And as long as we continue to support Netanyahu, as long as we continue to support Netanyahu, and as long as we protect him from the international courts. And by the way, the reason we do that is we know we would be judged by the same. If we took America to the courts for what they did in Panama, all my innocent friends that were killed, I don't know who they are, but that were killed. I know in Cologne is very small, so I can guarantee you some of my friends were killed. My father told me of an incident where we had a language barrier. This guy is, Cologne has one street to get from Arcoiris to Cologne. One street. The Humvees are right there blocking the street. The guy has the insulin for his wife. And he's trying to explain to the officer, I need to get the insulin to my wife. She's going into a coma. In Spanish, tengo que llevarlo a mi esposa. Tengo que llevarlo a mi esposa. This is in Panama, my town. Arco Iris going into Colon. Okay? Going into Colon. This guy is trying. When my father told me that story, it was like, oh my God. And as the guy was running towards my insulin in Spanish, insulin. Okay? What do you think the guys in the Umphi did? They opened up and blew that guy up. Israel blew up some of their own. They came out with white flags. Israeli citizens coming out of hiding in Gaza with white flags. These trigger-happy criminal genocidal maniacs just went ahead and opened up and killed their own. The mentality of inhumanity. Don't let anybody let you say that because you care about human beings that you're being anti-Semitic. In fact, what is necessary now? What is necessary now is a strong spine to stand up to those forces that continue over and over again to tell you your eyes are not seeing what they are. 35,000 dead Palestinians, 1,200 dead Israelis. Bad on each side, evil on each side. But please, on a matter of scale, who is causing more death to humanity? Look at Tel Aviv. Look at Haifa. Look at Jerusalem. And look at Gaza. Who is the aggressor? Your eyes are not fooling you. And if you and the same misinformation, the same way we allow others to tell us that we are dumb by not seeing what we're seeing, they're telling you you are dumb by not seeing what. It's the same people who tell you you are dumb here in Texas not to fight for the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act that will save life. They're telling you no, you don't want that. You don't want those policies that are going to save lives. You don't want to have women's with their rights that going to save their lives. You don't want to have a good policy that's going to make sure your kids have daycare. The same people that misinform you about what's going on in Gaza are the same people that are misinforming you about why you don't want progressive policies that we know will help you, but they snow you and they make you believe that somehow, magically, that you making a whole bunch of plutocrats richer is good for you, even as the data shows you are poorer, you have less savings, and everything else. But you buy it. And why do you buy it? Why do you buy it? Okay, let me get back. Sorry for the long rant, but I think it's important. It is very important. Your eyes are not deceiving you. You have gray matter between those two airs. You are smart. Don't allow somebody to take away your intelligence. All right, let's see what else we have here. Para ver. The May 5th election of Jose Raul Mulino as president of Panama shows a clear shift in politics of Central America, likely economic regional implications that are curious similarity of America's upcoming November election. Observers and experts say Molino has been dubbed a law and order populist, one that faces financial hurdles but will stay away from the Chinese ties and association of predecessors Cortizo. Dream on. You don't know if you believe what you just saw there, you don't know Panamanian politics. You need to ask me first. There's no way. Well, anyway, we'll go into that another time. All right, let's continue reading. Let's see what else we got. Bear with me, folks. Carl Cox says, Carl Cox is here. They're everywhere. Also, Carl Cox is the name. Getting through life is the game. That's a good one. Lee Grant is in the house. Hey, y'all. Hey, Lee Grant. Breach MCP is in the house. How you doing, Breach? Great to see you here. Eric Hayes says, politics right with Egberto Willis, like the squad, too, on coming down on nonprofits that celebrate Israel. All right, let's continue. Michael Rowan said, Egberto, the pending ICC arrest warrants mean that if Netanyahu leaves Israel and travels to any of the 124 signatory nations, he will be arrested and extradited to face genocide and war crimes charges at The Hague. Could not have happened to a better person. He is a criminal, he is a thug, and he's no better. He's no better than the rest. But anyway, let me play the first video and then we'll get moving right this minute. Recently, a New York Times Siena poll came out that sent Democrats freaking out because it seems like the president is flailing in the Midwestern states and the states that are going to decide the election, what we call it, the swing states. And, I looked at the polls and my thing was, nah, it's not that the polls are wrong. It's that's just how they conducted the poll doesn't really reflect what the likely voter model is going to be or, where people are. And, I said that to myself and I continue to hold to the belief that by the time we get down to November, we are not going to have a close election. I repeat, we're not going to have a close election. It's going to be a Democratic landslide from the bottom all the way up to the top. If we do what we are supposed to do. Remember, the right side of the equation has no policy. And once it's pointed out to the American people that there is no policy there and that their personal economy, their health economy, and all these other economies are in danger, at that point, they will start really taking account to what needs to happen. And that means a landslide victory for the middle and left side of the aisle. Listen to these two pollsters, John De La Volpe and Larry Sabato, because these guys have been more right than wrong. Check it out and then we'll take it on the other side.
Last week, a New York Times Siena College poll found that Trump was leading Biden in 5 out of 6 battleground states. And those numbers got a lot of attention. But I have 2 guests standing by who have some serious questions about that polling. Larry Sabato from the University of Virginia says he laughed when he read the result for Nevada. How could Trump be ahead by double digits in a state that has gone blue for 2 decades? And John De La Volpe, who runs polling at Harvard's Kennedy School, asked how Biden could be 24 points ahead in the Wisconsin youth vote, but 27 points behind in the Michigan youth vote. There are more questions where those came from. Larry, walk us through this, because when these polls come out, these polls carry the narrative for a good week and a half till the next polls come along, and not enough people are saying, hold on a minute. How are these polls actually conducted? So you say you laughed when you first saw this. Why?
Because the result's absurd. That's always a good test for polling. And I know John has looked at this too. So many of the internals are directly contradictory. You mentioned one. It's true with young people. It's true with elderly voters. It's true with minorities. 23% of blacks voting for Trump. Please get real. And here's the problem, Stephanie. It's not so much that there are polls being taken. There will always be polls taken because it's clickbait, and the news organizations make lots of money on this, or they at least claim they do. It gets lots of attention. And you're right. I'm not exaggerating. I personally saw 100 references to this poll in print and on TV pundit panels. And somehow the narrative changed overnight from this is a very close race, why it's just going to be a handful of votes in 6 or 7 states, to, boy, Biden's losing. He's doing terribly. What can he do to turn this around? No, nothing major changed. It's May. The election is in October and November. I just have to remember something. I'm old enough to remember when Senator Gene McCarthy in 1963 very wisely said, the press is like a bunch of blackbirds on a telephone pole. When one moves, they all move. When one comes back, they all come back. Safety in numbers, but boy, is there a lot of groupthink in the press. I'd love it if they mixed it up more and disagreed, but apparently they can't argue with numbers published by the great New York Times.
Well, we're mixing it up right now, my friend. John, what makes you doubt this poll?
Well, many of the same things that Larry mentioned in terms of these internals. When something doesn't make sense, that gives me pause to take a step back and to compare these internal numbers time after time after time, consistently within the New York Times poll or across other polls. And not just did we see 51-point differences between Michigan and Wisconsin, but we saw similar 50-something point differences among younger people in Arizona in Nevada. I spent a lot of time talking to younger people. I spent a lot of time talking to older voters, and I just don't see that variance from state to state to state. We have to remember, Stephanie, as Larry indicated, polling is much more than averaging a bunch of horse races. It's much more than informing betting markets. Doing our job well means informing our democracy. It means giving voice to the people. And my concern when we have inconsistency state after state among younger folks, among Hispanic folks, among older folks, that's not doing our job in terms of public opinion researchers. And that's the message I think that's so important to recognize in this conversation.
John, you wrote last week, quote, "If I misrepresent an X-ray or an MRI, it doesn't mean the medical imaging is broken. It means I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a doctor." Same with polling. What do you mean here?
What I mean is that there's a cottage industry on people on social media who are analytics experts, and they believe by averaging horse races, they can interpret public opinion. And they then say public opinion is broken. I'm not saying that public opinion or polling is broken. What I'm saying is I know how to fix it. And the way in which you fix it, if it is broken, the way in which you fix it is to develop samples that are representative of all of the subgroups that make up the electorate. Okay, so I'm not going to look at X-rays and say and have an opinion on X-rays and say if I miss one that all of imagery is broken. Okay, I'm not a physician. Just like most people on Twitter are not pollsters. To do polling well, it's just not about averaging numbers. It's about pulling the samples, listening to people, and making sure you have a consistent voice throughout the survey.
Well, polls are not the only way we hear from voters. Obviously, reporters interview them. There are focus groups. Do we focus too much on polls, Larry?
Oh, absolutely. And I agree with the way John has phrased his concerns about this, but I would add something far broader. John mentioned democracy. That's what worries me. And it ought to be worrying everybody. All this money and energy and space devoted to polls where the numbers are going to change many, many times between now and the actual election, instead of having, say, a front page article on what Trump said over the weekend about his third term. The Constitution doesn't permit that. In fact, he mentioned FDR, who had 4 terms. Or a few hours ago, Trump posted on social media a couple of articles that talked about the Third Reich, the unity of the Third Reich, or maybe it was the Fourth Reich, but it was the Reich. Hey, this is significant. You know, we're listening to it. Listen to him. He's telling us what he is and what he wants to do. That should be the front page article, not what some poll showed overnight in Nevada or Wisconsin, which may or may not be accurate or which may or may not hold up even for 3 days.
Now, folks, like I said, if you look at the polls, and I love what Villapolfe and the other guys said, they saw the poll and it was like, ha, 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 really now? Come on. And you know what? For anybody who says, remember the way when you attacked the right for having the skewed polls and talking about skewed polls, and it turns out the polls weren't skewed at all. The Democrats won in landslides. This is not the same situation at all. We're not talking about skewed polls. We're talking about real polls. Here's the thing. These are the same polls that made you believe the abortion bills or I think it was a constitutional amendment in Kansas, in Kentucky, in all these places were actually going to be a close fight. Somehow it's going to be close. And all these issues won in landslides. Because when folks went behind that curtain or in the privacy of their voting booth, what they said to themselves is, I have to live 4 years with this choice? Am I going to run the risk that my daughter, in case she comes out with an unexpected pregnancy, that she cannot protect her personal economy? If I turned out that I need, that the only way for me to have a kid is to have IVF, in vitro fertilization, that I can't do it. If I let this 4 years go and find out that I probably won't be able to have contraception, if I find out that the free press is free no more, if I find out that if I speak against certain governmental agencies, that I can be sued, or I can have the IRS sicked after me. When you start putting all these things into perspective, and the truth of the matter, for once, the left side of the aisle has the money to publicize that. But even if they didn't have the money, crowdsourcing is up and ready to go at the opportune time to put the message out. So for those who are hyperventilating about the polls, don't. But you got to get to work now, because you're not going to win by sitting down being scared in your couch. You're going to win by being an active participant. You're going to win by making sure those who have the fund to fund organizations pushing the message, like yours truly and others, you fund. You make sure that those organizations are able to do the job. Not paying big time consultants, but paying those who can get that message out, and get that message out often, accurately, truthfully, and morally. So folks, don't fret the polls. Make the polls.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.
Absolutely join. Absolutamente llegan con nosotros, por favor. All right. Let me read a few more of these messages. Michael says, Eric, October 7th was an atrocity, killing of civilians, rapes. It was a horror. What Israel did after that in retaliation was worse on a scale that made the horror pale in comparison. 400,000 destroyed homes, over 25,000 dead women and children. You keep saying the numbers are too high. I'm telling you, they are probably an undercount, as there are bodies under rubble still not dug out. And what is too high? I'm wondering, what is too high if those numbers are too high? Bruce says, so sad, so sad. Of course, now Eric says, all is bad, but to compare per capita to happening in America is apples and oranges. Not really. It's not apple to oranges at all. It just gives you a scale. No one, from Mike Cisak, no one on the left talks about the genocide by the Muslims. I talk about whoever commits genocide. And if you think the Muslims are the perpetrators of more genocide around the world than anybody else, you don't know history. So I suggest you go ahead and study the Inquisition, the Crusades. I suggest you study all these different types of things that have occurred. I suggest you study our own history, because we effected genocide on the entire native population in the United States. So again, don't be looking at the Muslim as if there is some sort of a purity we have, they don't. Okay? Because we were one of the perpetrators of the largest genocide, if not the largest genocide, in the Western Hemisphere. So have some humility when you try to talk about other cultures and what they do, etc., etc. I'm not defending any, but I'm also not giving any of us a pass or coming to have some sort of righteous indignation. Carl Cox says Netanyahu knew the October 7 attack was going to happen. He let it happen so he could stay in power and kill Palestinians. He let it happen for a lot of reasons, man. Bridge MCP says some actually research, others just believe what they hear. Fall News people, I'm going to put that one. Let's see what we got here from beautiful Bridge MCP. She always have those great videos. I remember nuclear power plant. That movie came with Jane Fonda. Came right before 3 Mile Island. I can't remember the name of the movie. Did you put it in there? Let's see if she put it in there. I don't think you put the name of the movie in there. Hello, Paul Fleming. Welcome aboard. Like she didn't put it in there, but there. Let me put it on the screen for you. I love that movie. The news. And it says the following: the news used to tell you that something happened. Then you had to decide what you thought about it. Now the news tell you how to think about something, and you have to decide if it even happened. I love that. That is so true. That is so true. That's a very good one, Bridge MCP. Eso es una que es bien perfecto. All right. Let me leave that up on the screen. It's not blinking today, and see what else I can come up with. Paul Fleming says, when Trump openly and repeatedly exclaims that migrants are poisoning the blood of our country, or shares a video calling for a unified Reich, he's literally echoing the language of Hitler. Trump is not a populist. He's not a strongman. He's a fascist. Use the word. He's a fascist. I agree. CSEC says, Paul Fleming, why are you repeating falsified claims? Only Biden has done such. Let's go ahead and repeat that image by Bridge. The news used to tell you that something happened, then you had to decide what you thought about it. Now the news tells you how to think about something, and you have to decide if it even happened. Thank you, Bridge. That is apropos. All right, so let's see what else we got here. What else we got here? What else we got here? The International Criminal Court, ICC, cannot ignore a judgment of genocide from the ICJ, and ICC will have no choice but to issue arrest warrants. I hope so, and I want to see those arrest warrants against El Señor. What can I say? So we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, Paul Fleming says, Fannie Willis destroyed Jim Jordan last night on Rachel Maddow. I know not only that, she called him a clown on Rachel. You know what? I'm surprised I didn't get that clip. But you're so right. That was a good clip about Jordan when she talked about his district is so lousy with crime, and here he is. I mean, she was good. I mean, clip that one so people can hear it. Thanks for that one, Paul. Let me see if I can remember that. All right, Michael says, Paul, seeing the segment for politicians are never destroyed until they're taken out of office for the horrendous act. And we need to take them out of office. All right, I'm scrolling down. I still have time for the other video. Scroll news blackout, from Gaza. Al Jazeera is no longer able to report from Israel. All right, yesterday, Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney Fannie Willis talks with Rachel Maddow about Georgia state Republican politicians following the lead of Republican Jordan to abuse their political position to try to interfere in the criminal prosecution of Donald Trump. Yep. Egberto, the conservatives in the chat have repeatedly said they believe that Gaza hospitals and UN numbers are half the reported. But even half is still over 10,000 women and children killed. It's still a horror. I mean, what gets me is their ability to look at dead people, look at cracked skulls, look at the comparison between Tel Aviv and Gaza, and have those thoughts. It tells you something about what ideology can do to morality, or what the worship of that was the name, the China syndrome. That was it, 1979. I remember that. Lee Grant says Native Americans genocided themselves for a long time before. No. They had wars, etc. But they didn't have the systematic destruction and movement like what we did in America. Not only the trails of tears and the Black Hills, etc., but we were vicious in our genocidal behavior, and we made the Muslims look innocent. The things that we did to the natives, hell, the things that we did to the slave, slicing them up alive, cutting their private parts off, taking off their skin in them, boiling them. That's what our people did to others here in America. So we ought to be very humble. We ought to be very humble when we try to discount the humanity of people from around the world, because some of the most atrocities against human beings were done right here on these lands by the new settlers of America. Don't ever forget that. And all of our immigrants here, don't let anybody make you feel like you're lesser, more violent or anything, because the perpetration of violence in this country against the other is unparalleled. It's unparalleled. The violence effected on the bodies of the others in this country, on the natives, on the Chinese, on the slaves. The violence on those bodies. What I'm trying to tell, don't let anybody take away your humanity. Don't let anybody fool you into believing that the others are less human at all. Because if we were to itemize the atrocities done, new books would have to be written. All right. Bri says, Egberto, people in this country have no clue what it is like to live under these circumstances. I mean, we freaked on 9/11 and the Oklahoma bombing. Imagine this every single day for years, sometimes decades. So they sit behind a keyboard without understanding, without empathy, and just cast blame. Blows my mind. And the first person to say move is one of them. You know what? Like I said, I'm an American. I'm moving nowhere. If there's anybody who wants to move from the America that we are building, you can move to a place that enjoy treating people inhumanely. But it won't happen here. All right. Let's continue here. Fanny is in trouble. Maybe abide by the law. That's a joke. Maybe we should tell that to our to our Attorney General, what is it, Patton? Ken Paxton. All right, let's see. Paul Fleming says the POTUS Joe Biden administration said Tuesday that it's releasing 1 million barrels of gasoline from a Northeast reserve established after Superstorm Sandy in a bid to lower prices at the pump this summer. Mike Cisak says, Paul Fleming, the problem with Fanny is her abuse of the judicial system. That's a joke. And the funding she got from the federal government, that was for other programs, but she used it to pay her boyfriend a ton of money, which, of course, that's a lie. But, you know, you guys will continue repeating these things that you learn from bad sources. All right, let's go ahead and go on to my last video of the day. I think you'll find it interesting. Here it is. Trump stepped in it one more time. On Truth Social, he got another post up talking about the Unified Reich. For those who understand, learn a little bit about the First Reich, the Second Reich, and the Third Reich, which is Nazi Germany, and the Unified Reich. Well, I didn't know about this as much either. So the little that I do know, I did find out quickly that it's all about supremacy again and control. It's all about the past. It's all about reliving a past that wasn't all that good for the vast majority of the other. So I want you to listen to this, what Trump did, then we'll take it on the other side.
Trump's campaign is navigating their response to a since-deleted video posted on Trump's Truth Social account. The White House says President Biden will weigh in on that post this afternoon.
Let's bring in NBC's senior national politics reporter, Jonathan Allen. Jonathan, tell us about this post. What is at the heart of this controversy?
Yeah, this was a pro-Trump post that was reposted on Trump's Truth Social account. And basically, in it predicted and praised a coming, quote, unified Reich under Donald Trump if he wins the presidency again. For those who are experts on European history, the First Reich was the Holy Roman Empire. The Second Reich was under Otto von Bismarck in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And of course, the Third Reich was the Nazi regime that committed the Holocaust, attempted to take over the world. There's a reason nobody talks about a unified Reich anymore, and it's because of that association with the Third Reich, the Nazi Reich. The Trump Trump campaign is distancing itself. Here's what they had to say through Caroline Levitt, a spokeswoman for the campaign. She said this was not a campaign video. It was created by a random account online and reposted by a staffer who clearly did not see the word while the president was in court. The real extremist is Joe Biden, who has turned his back on Israel and the Jewish people by bowing down to radical anti-Semites and terrorist sympathizers in his party like Ilhan Omar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I should just add as a piece of context here that in the past, there are only two people who have had access to Donald Trump's account. Donald Trump and his aide, Dan Scavino. Also, we know that Donald Trump has been posting Truth Social posts while he's been in court. So the idea that it would have been impossible for him to do that is contradicted by the evidence that he has been posting on Truth Social during court days. Not clear exactly who did this, but the campaign is blaming it on a staffer. And of course, the Biden campaign has already had a response to that. I think we might be able to put that up on the screen for folks. Biden campaign saying, America, stop scrolling and pay attention. Donald Trump is not playing games. He is telling America exactly what he intends to do if he regains power. Rule as a dictator over a, quote, unified Reich. Parroting, quote, Mein Kampf, that's Adolf Hitler's book, while you warn of a bloodbath, if you lose, is the type of unhinged behavior you get from a guy who knows that democracy continues to reject his extreme vision of chaos, division, and violence. And as you noted a moment ago, Anna, President Biden is expected to address this. This is the kind of thing that his campaign wants to talk about. They believe that they have a vision for democracy, that they have shown a record of strength in democracy, and that Donald Trump is offering something quite different, something quite undemocratic, and that aligns with this, quote, unified Reich view that one of his supporters has.
So yes, the Unified Reich. That is what Trump wants to talk about now. That is what his people are building. If you listen to all the things they believe in, that's what it's all about. I find it ironic, the type of support that he's getting, not only from the expected ones that we would that we know would support him, but from all the others that are supporting him. Well, the Biden administration so far has jumped on it. Here's what Vice President Kamala Harris had to say.
Just yesterday, the former president of the United States, who praises dictators, who said there were very fine people on both sides in Charlottesville, let's not forget, took to social media and highlighted language from Nazi Germany. This kind of rhetoric is unsurprising coming from the former president, and it is appalling. And we got to tell him who we are.
Now, listen, folks, it's not a joke. Trump has been telling us in a lot of different ways he wanted to be an autocrat. He wanted to make those who are not white realize that, hey, you don't belong, even though he claims that he's getting a lot of support from those other people, you know, the black and brown ones. Of course, he probably means, well, I'm going to need support of those folks who are going to be the servants in this new society, in this new Reich, in this unified Reich. We're going to need those who are going to be the perpetual servants. So those that are supporting him, the truth of the matter is no moral person, no moral, humane person should support this guy. And worse, the amount of sycophants that he has that are willing to work with him, including our plutocracy, the oligarchy. I mean, they had the power to provide the necessary funding to ensure that an anti-democratic clown like this guy didn't get elected again. But you know what? The way they see it is, if this guy gets into power, he will ensure that they can maintain their riches and continue their parasitic behavior on everybody else. So, folks, you've been told, you've been warned that Donald Trump not only presents a clear and present danger to some of us, but ultimately a clear and present danger to the vast majority of us, say 99% or so.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.
Absolutely join, my friends. Absolutely join, my friend. That's what we're all about here. Anyway, folks, anyway. We are at the 55-minute. Anybody wants to call in before I start to shout up? But I want to read from our one and only El Senor Tom Sarnik to kind of, disregard what CSAC has to say. Anybody who calls Hitler a left winger, that pretty much tells you a lot about who they are. All right, so let's not fool ourselves. Brother Ray, talk to me.
Yeah, brother. You know that's disturbing. Listen to what you said. What was said about a unified Reich, and yeah, that's not something that I want to hear. I hope some of your right-wing people woke up to that, and that might turn them off. And I also like the video that you played about the polls being all wrong. It's like, yeah, we probably had predicted a Democratic landslide in the past, and we were wrong about that. But now they are predicting a Republican landslide, and we're saying, remember what happened to us when we thought that there was going to be a Democratic landslide. Now the shoe is on the other foot. I kind of follow you on that. That's kind of,
but
at least
let
that's
me,
the way I'm seeing it. I might be wrong.
No, let me give you the numbers, okay? And because this is not wishful thinking. And first of all of this stuff is fluid, Ray. And what I try to tell people as far as the election is concerned is the following. It's not baked yet. Biden's biggest problem is that he looked like a damn old man. And also that a lot of people there's a lot of undercurrent that we don't see in the media. Guys like Mike Csiek and all these guys are getting bombarded by email, bombarded by social media. Their TikTok and all of that, because of what they look at, puts them into their own world. Okay. Now, programs like what I do here, there are techniques that I kind of use to blow up that social media bubble. In other words, I will get myself into some right-wing areas every so often. And likewise with my radio show on air. If you notice the amount of callers that call in that are actually right-wing callers, we reach a whole lot of right-wingers, etc. And you just have to keep planting that seed, right? But here's the thing: this is not wishful thinking here. Here's what I can tell you. All the polls have been since Trump skewed in favor of Trump, from the abortion issue, IVF issue, all of these. And when we actually went to the polls, we exceeded the polls by 5 to 10 points at least. Okay. And the reason why is the model no longer holds. And they're still trying to figure out what the model should look like. A poll is, you have a poll with 1,000 people. In that 1,000 people, you hope to get a right representation of what the population looks like. And they have missed it in every single race that we've had since Trump. And I don't mean miss it by 1 or 2 points. I'm talking about Kansas missing it by 10, 15 points. Where the New York race missing it by 8 points. I mean, and I'm saying every time they've missed it, it's been missed in one direction, meaning it's favored the right. So what the polls favored the right, and the left comes in and swipes it. And there is a reason why they got burned with Trump. They thought they got burned with Trump. But if you take a look at the Trump polls in 2016, it wasn't all that bad. But they interpret the electoral college win as it being worse than it was. All those battleground states were within the margin of error. Notice at the end of the video what I said, Ray. I said, we have a landslide, but you have to do the work. We had Hillary Clinton winning, but she didn't do the work in Philadelphia, Milwaukee, or Detroit. Had she done the work in Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Detroit, it would have been President Hillary Clinton. And Michael Moore begged her campaign, but nobody could get to her. And it's the same thing again. So I am not scared. I am not worried unless we screw up yet again. And from what I'm seeing in the underground, I see a lot of action starting to take place. I don't know if you feel me, Ray.
You know what? You brought up a good point. Michael Moore need to come out with another film to put in perspective what America would look like under another Trump presidency. He needs to take all that footage, the January 6th, the ridiculous like vaccine with the injecting bleach, all of that. Michael Moore needs to take and collect all of that and take a corroboration of all of that and put it in a film and put it out there before the election. That might wake some people up. I'm glad you brought Michael Moore up, during that.
I love Michael
Moore. Running short on time.
Yes.
Oh yeah, he really was. Watching his films in my sociology class in high school really kind of really planted the seeds for my progressive values that I have today.
For those who haven't seen it, watch his film on healthcare. I can't remember the name. I'm looking it up.
Sicko.
Michael Sicko. Everybody needs to watch Sicko. Sicko will teach you a lesson, and right wingers maybe will try to find some sort of an excuse, but people on the margin, Sicko would make a difference. But I gotta go. Thank you so kindly for calling in, my brother Ray. Always great hearing your voice.
Okay, one last thing. I got to give flowers to our congressperson, Jasmine, because she called it like she saw it.
Yes.
Bad built, bleach blonde butch body. Say that 5 times fast.
I can't say it. I tried, but you know what? She nailed it. And guess what? I interviewed her 3 times. I interviewed her on this show 3 times. You can look it up and see. She's a great person, But anyhow, I can't reach her now, but I'm going to keep trying to reach her. But anyway, thank you, Ray, for calling in. All right, my brother?
All right. Thank you, brother. Peace,
Take care.
To you.
All right, folks, I got to get out of here. But before I get out of here, I need to ask you all so kindly to support the program. And how can you support the program? You can support the program by going to the all-encompassing link, politicsdoneright.com/support. But I can give you some quick drops right now. You can support us by going to politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. I need some additional patrons right now. politicsdoneright.com/patrons. Or you can support us by getting one or more of my books, politicsdoneright.com/books. My latest book is Tribulations of an Afro-Latino Caribbean Man, but I also have these other books on that you will find quite interesting, rewarding, and teaching. Lose Weight and Be Fit Now, Tribulations of an Afro-Latino Caribbean Man. Also, of course, there is, as I see it, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. You can get to, and it's a good book, How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. Likewise, it's worth it, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relative, Friends, and Neighbors. You can go to politicsdoneright.com/books to get that one. But what I'd love everybody to do who has the wherewithal, please, please, please consider supporting our newsletter by becoming a paid supporter of our newsletter. Go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. I just threw that into the feed as well. And if you support our newsletter, you get to read all of our books free of charge on our Substack or at our website. So please consider becoming a full-time subscriber of our newsletter. Once you become a subscriber of our newsletter, you get access to all our books. And I've also put that link on Twitter. Let me do it again. I put that link on Twitter for you to go ahead and support us that way. Folks, I got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby, right? I am what? Out! Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.